Okay, welcome. Myself, Eric Broadbent, and two other members of the Northampton Climate Emergency Coalition Energy Coaching Working Group are going to speak about our plans for establishing a coaching program in Northampton and beyond. We have future aspirations in that direction, but we want to get going in Northampton to begin with. So I'm going to let Denise and Tom introduce themselves before we get going.
Um, I feel like I already have, but I'll go ahead again. So Denise Lello, Mothers Out Front, and uh, yeah, I think that our slides pretty much incorporate our notions about why this is an important thing to do. And I'll let Tom go ahead and um, introduce himself.
Tom Bassett, and the reason I'm doing all this for personal reasons would be my five grandchildren who I want to leave a better world to. And I've been a mechanical engineer, now retired after 40 years. So that's another interest I have. The company I worked with also made productive parts instead of destructive components. So a lot of pollution control, that sort of thing. Thanks. Eric, back to you.
Okay, well, we're going to hand it right off to Denise, and here you go.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right. So the way we're going to structure this, we have about 10 to 12 slides total. So we're going to split it up in three sections. So I'll take the first one. The first section is going to be just the motivation for energy coaching. And then the sort of initial scope and how we have planned so far to launch the program. And then Eric will take over and talk about how the coach training will be structured and how that will work. And then Tom will take over and direct the discussion to more specifically the timeline going into the future, near future, and also how LEA might be able to help us with this effort. So the first slide that you see has to do with why we need energy coaching in the first place. So as you can see, about 30% of all the energy used in Massachusetts is residential and commercial, of which about 80% is heating and cooling building space and water. We have these decarbonization goals of net zero by 2050. We have to accelerate that if we're going to meet this goal. We have to accelerate the rate at which we are electrifying our existing buildings. 1 million residences would need to transition to heat pumps by 2030 for us to be on track, and we are not anywhere near that. And one of the reasons that residents hesitate is that they find the process of electrifying their households and all the various options that there are to be just confusing and a little daunting. So some hand-holding by a coach, and particularly someone from the community who is a neighbor, can be very reassuring to people. Local volunteers are also seen as more trustworthy than business ads or utility-sponsored programs that have outreach that can go into the homes to help people, but it's not the same as having a coach who really has your interests in mind. Eric, we could go to the next slide.
Are we not seeing it? I have it up on the share, I thought.
I still see the first. Oh, no, I don't. I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay.
So the training is important because building components are complex. It takes training and knowledge sharing to build a successful program where people learn from each other, and some new technologies that are going to be rolling out as we go along it's really necessitates sort of ongoing training and updating of your knowledge. Coaches have to understand a lot of factors, heating and cooling demand on buildings, how weatherization, ventilation, and the legacy of their HVAC systems impact their operation of heat pumps and their choices. Coaches also need to understand Mass Save program requirements for rebates and loans, because the application process and who qualifies can be complicated for people to navigate. So there's another situation, which is where homeowners might have an existing furnace or a heating system that is relatively new and is has a pretty good life ahead of it. But by having a coach come and help to plan for the eventual day when the system breaks down or becomes closer to the end of its life, if they have a plan in place that they can make with a coach, that can help them avoid making spot decisions when an emergency occurs. So our vision for this program initially is to focus on heat pumps for homes in Northampton. We envision this rolling out over many months during this year. The pre-launch outreach, which has already begun, is to announce the first coach training session, which will run during February and March, recruit coaches and others interested in the coaching program to participate in that, and then also to identify the homes in the city that are heated with oil or electric baseboard. Those are initial targets because those are the most expensive and the dirtiest fuels that people are heating their homes with. The second part is what we're calling the soft launch. So that will involve limited outreach to the public. We'll contact residents in those target homes that we identify to recruit our first set of clients. And the rationale for having this soft launch instead of going directly into the full program is that we intend to use the experience that we gain during this soft launch to improve the process and gain coaching experience prior to fully launching the program. And the final part of this initial scope is after this Heat Smart Alliance training is completed, February, March, at the same time, we would be developing the Mass Energize web portal that we have talked about with some of the people in LEA about helping with. So this is a subscription program, the Mass Energize program, and it's a website that hosts pages for about 19 communities across Massachusetts right now. And we'll show you one at the end of this presentation. We anticipate that it'll take approximately 6 to 8 weeks after we initiate our subscription to publish a coaching webpage with a request form and appropriate resources for people to access who are interested in the coaching program. Another thing that we need to do in the initial scope is to identify the program coordinator. So this position will be a volunteer to start. Ideally, ultimately, we'd like to see a municipally supported position part-time, and we'd like to advocate for this. But initially, it would be a volunteer position. And then the official launch we're envisioning happening by late summer. By that time, the portal will be together. We'll have our first group of coaches who have had some practice with coaching, and we'll be ready for the broad public outreach. And for that, we'll use all available channels, the Gazette, radio programs, social media, and we'll be requesting then local organizations to help us with posting and sharing the availability of the coaching program.
Sorry for the early slide switch.
That's right. That's right. So that's the end of this initial section, my section. So I just want to pause in case anyone has questions at this point that they'd like clarification on. I see a hand from Pamela. I think you're muted.
Yeah, so I'm from Greenfield. Have
Uh-huh.
the 19 communities in Massachusetts already been chosen?
There's only one. No, oh, no. So I'm sorry. The 19 communities are the ones who have sites hosted on this Mass Energized web portal. We're only talking about one community that will actually be part of this coaching program, and that is Northampton to start with.
Oh,
And we're hoping eventually to include all the Valley Green Energy communities.
so Valley Green Energy communities, does that include Greenfield?
No, so Valley Green Energy is the CCA that is Northampton, Amherst, and Pelham.
Okay.
Pam, hi, this is Eric Broadbent. Do you have any coaches in your community yet? If not, they could sign up for the training, and if they can't attend because it's oversubscribed, then we will plan on, as I will get to, we will plan on running a regional training after that.
Okay. Well, I can just tell you, you know Carol Collins,
Yes, of course. Yes,
Hampton, and then she came back to Greenfield.
yes.
So she's like our coach incorporated. And personally, my house is net zero, little rehab house, very common, little cape.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt, Pam. I want them to finish the presentation before we get into any deeper questions. This is just general questions right now.
yeah, that whether or not we have energy coaches, we have lots of people who are prepared to be energy coaches or energy coaches of a different sort, I would say.
Great. Let's see if there's other questions. Thank you, Pam.
Okay. Eric.
Am I muted? Yes. Okay, sorry. I wanted to mention before I move on that the three people in our area are distributed not just in Northampton, and six already trained are also distributed across the region. Our communities in Amherst, Pelham, East Hampton. So there is a group that is able to coach locally, and as Lori has done, maybe we share across towns to start. I'm hoping people have heard about the Heat Smart Alliance, but if not, I will tell you that it grew out of, well, it's an volunteer organization, very well run. It has an amazing amount of helpful information for coaching and for regular folks who want to look for information about heat pumps. The Alliance grew out of the original Heat Smart program run by Mass Clean Energy Center, and collected coaches from all those communities into the organization, and they contribute. I'm going to go, so the coaching model provides guidance to coaches on how they conduct themselves with a client, what they do, what they should do, what they should not do. And this really is a very necessary thing to frame how the process works. There's for example, a waiver form that indemnifies the coach for anything that might have happened or might happen during the home visit or whatever. And it doesn't hold the coach responsible for the system if it fails, if the coach was just giving advice and didn't overextend themselves and say, I think you should get this system or this system. So they've thought about all of this. I'm going to just highlight a couple of the resources in the knowledge and skills matrix, and the engagement process next. This is a table showing what, and I'm not going to force anybody to read it or go through it, but these are the skills and knowledge that coaches should have as a result of going through the basic training course, which we will be running in February and March. So there are a lot of pieces of information to learn and to become facile with as a coach. General knowledge, air source heat pumps, then knowledge about air source heat pumps specifically, ground source heat pumps separately, and then heat pump water heaters. They all have their own characteristics, operational characteristics, and pros and cons. The next piece of institutional knowledge is this engagement process model, which demonstrates how the coach interacts. It doesn't demonstrate it, it documents how the coach interacts with a client. You can see the program administrator needs to, after that happens, do some work to assign the request to a client, and so on. It's a back and forth of interactions with the client. At some point, there will be a meeting between the coach and the client to go over what they need, the aspects of their home and their heating system, and so on. A lot of the back end of this is what we'll be using the website for calendar and a tracking database that we'll be able to access from there. So I think that's it for me. Tom? Oh, I guess I'll ask for if there are any questions on the Heat Smart Alliance, their coaching model, and why we're following that. Okay. Oh, no, I don't see any hands up. All right, onward. Take it away, Tom.
Thank you. So you've heard, why do an energy coaching program? What is it going to look like? And at least in the near term. And now we're going to talk about what it's going to be beyond the heat pumps, because that's the easiest thing, I think, for people to grab a hold of and understand for new electrification technologies to heat their homes is heat pumps. And then we envision you really kind of doing almost like a whole home or a whole residence or commercial energy plan, so that somebody comes up with what they want to do over the next 5 years to try to become electrified. Some of the things are easy and you do those quick. Some of the things are big benefits, you do those quick. There may be some changes in strategy where you want to do things quickly to take advantage of things like the Inflation Reduction Act rebates before they go away, if they go away. So to do this, we're envisioning that we're going to certainly have future trainings. As Eric said, the Heat Smart Alliance coaching course is really the foundation of what our technique for coaches is going to be. So they are pretty much also focused on heat pumps for their coaching. So you got the coaching part, and then you got the technology part. What we see is developing some curriculums for the technology part. All the coaching stuff is going to come pretty naturally, I think, once we get, used to it, get some experience, share some best practices within our group. And then going beyond Northampton, one of the really nice visions that helped us when we first came to local energy advocates to request some funding was they said, hey, can you incorporate the Valley Green Energy communities, which we said before are Northampton, Amherst, and Pelham. And there's also, so I think that's a great idea. We were certainly ready for that. They understand, and hopefully you will, that we're not going to be able to jump right in and service in the way we want to all of those communities, because we're going to meter it out a little bit and, take it slow, we don't want to disappoint people, as I like to say, under promise and over deliver, which means, only say you're going to do a little bit, but then wow everybody and exceed their expectations. So that's really what our strategy is to concentrate on Northampton, then build it out from there. And there's a timeline that we've estimated. There's also this Electrify Northampton East Hampton program that Ben Weil, the CAPA director, has been part of. And that's a grant that has a goal for installing heat pumps in 100 places. And so they may have some, like an energy coordinator or energy expert that's available to support the two communities on other things they want to do. But basically, the thing we want to do is get this program up and running, get the website working, make initial contact, and then some other contact with clients. And all this time, during the whole thing, we're going to be involving Amherst and Northampton's energy coordinators so that they are fully aware of what we've developed, what we're working on, so that there's hopefully an easy transition to having the municipality take over more of the responsibility and funding, et cetera. But not yet. So they are booked for what they're trying to do to electrify the municipal buildings, which, as Denise said, that's part of the goal. But we're going to help with electrifying some of the residences and businesses. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a little estimated timeline in kind of a flow chart sort of thing. Starting over here in January, we're asking for funding from LEA to pay for the subscription to Mass Energize. And then just saying a little bit about Mass Energize, they were kind of a spinoff. These two people were doing stuff with Heat Smart Alliance, and then they saw an opportunity to make a business out of it. So they developed this really nice, I'll call it skeleton or framework of a website. And then you can customize it a little bit with your content to meet your particular community's needs. But the idea is that you can also, as part of your subscription, network with other communities that are using this same Mass Energize site. So we're hoping to really piggyback on some other people's experience and not feel like we have to invent all of it ourselves. But even still, this is a pretty aggressive, optimistic schedule based on Eric having set up one in Hudson, Mass previously before he moved to Northampton. And it's based on Wellesley put together a really nice slideshow as part of this Heat Smart Alliance network that showed it took them a year to get their system like up and running and operating well. And that was with some strong municipal support, which we have the support, but I wouldn't call it strong. So in February, we're going to get the training going. February, oh, I can't remember the dates. Sorry, Eric, do you remember the dates? I guess it's not as important right now, but and get that site populated, get the people trained, then the soft launch, and as we said before, target some customers or take on people that want to be working on electrifying their home or business. And then by the summer, we'll have some comfort level that we've got something good. We will have made some changes. We'll launch it out to a larger community and get more clients, hopefully. And I'm calling them clients just because that's good, easy shorthand. Customers, whatever they are. And then by October, we should be able to have some lessons learned and start to expand it out to Pelham, Amherst, and potentially East Hampton. Next slide, please. So Franklin, Mass was one. Yes.
Sorry, before we get into that, I just wanted to mention a couple of things in the last slide, if I could.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
The training in February and March will be every Thursday starting the week of February 13th. But participants will be doing homework prior to that. And then during the weeks to follow, it's 6 weeks. But it's pretty much full already. You can, but people that want to take the course eventually or just want to see the materials can still register. And then when we talked about a local program, that doesn't involve, that's something that we can stand up ourselves because we've been given permission to use the training materials. So I just want to make sure that people understood that the training is full as of this moment. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because the other thing that may affect a little bit is Northampton's ability to bring in newer coaches. There is, as Eric said, about 6 people already trained that can be tapped, hopefully.
From the region, not just Northampton, yeah.
Right, as Northampton coaches or coaches for this this program. So that may slow us down a little bit, but that's why we gave the estimate of using kind of October as the real target date for fully opening this thing up. We want to get organized and get a community together of coaches and go from there.
Yep. I have one more correction. The Electrify Northampton, East Hampton program, it's actually, I relearned that the official name is Northampton First, and then that does not come with funding for a coordinator. What that allows us to do is to potentially interact with the program administrator as volunteers. So that's the upside of that and why we would want to be involved if we could, and why including East Hampton makes sense. The funding that you referenced is from the Community First Partnership grant that Northampton and East Hampton applied for. And that may have some funding for an energy advocate, but we're not clear on that yet. Sorry for the nitty-gritty details. All right.
No, I think it hopefully paints a more clear picture of why there is some uncertainty around getting funding. Because even these programs that are already going and already funded don't necessarily meet all the needs that we see a Northampton, East Hampton, Amherst, Pelham energy coaching program require. So that's why we're pitching this to local energy advocates. There is an example, which I just wanted to show people of one of the communities that has a Mass Energize website. And
Excuse me.
they've,
Yeah, sorry. Eric, he won't be able to open that unless you put it in slide view mode instead of just showing the slides.
or I can share my screen and, oh, okay, there it is. Good. Okay. I can't quite navigate though since Eric's navigating. So anyway, this is the basic layout, and sometimes it's linked directly to the municipality. And but there's basically customization. So if you click on Eric, take action, for instance, it'll actually encourage the client or somebody to get started to understand, well, wait a minute, I guess I want to do some green heating and air conditioning. So you click on that and it takes you, to, all right, here's the steps you want to take, or here's the description. And those 4 bars right there, description, steps to take, and testimonials and deep dive, is a way of providing information to somebody before they even contact us. So that it's well done. It really is. And this kind of content is available for us to populate into our ultimately into our website. And then there's some other stuff they have, like they'll track actions and they'll show some benchmarks that they're trying to meet. And I see those things as kind of important to provide some positive feedback. If we can show that we're 30% along the way in only, 2 weeks or whatever, that can help people understand where they need to pitch in and how they can help. So again, just a quick overview. I didn't want to spend too much of our presentation except showing you how I think well laid out and powerful this website is. So their experience, and kind of build off of there rather than trying to create our own website. And certainly talking, I guess this is not news, but talking with Ben a while, the Northampton website is ancient. I mean, the technology, the platform, that website, it's just pretty funky to use. So what they would do is link directly to this external website, the Mass Energize website.
Ben Weil, for those that don't know, is our climate action director in Northampton, and he's very sympathetic. But they do not have the capacity now to help with the coaching program. Yeah.
Thanks, Eric. I guess next, go back to the presentation now and get into the last couple slides. So how can local energy advocates help us? Definitely the funding to pay for the Mass Energize website subscription is what we're asking for. And that is on a sliding scale depending on the population of your town. So that there's one fee, for instance, for I guess it's under 30,000 people. So we could do that for Northampton. And then if we added Amherst and Pelham, that bumps up the population to the next step in the subscriptions. So that's what we need to probably talk about is when and how, or some of our future planning would be when and how to expand it out to the other 2 communities, and when do we start paying for that more expensive subscription. LEA can help publicize the trainings. The initial training that Eric talked about doesn't need public knowledge, but at least getting people to talk about, hey, do you want to be an energy coach? We already have, I think it's 3 additional people who are interested, even before Eric put the information out there. This is the networking through the Northampton Climate Emergency Coalition and out through LEA. But that would really help, is to promote and publicize future events, future training, and also help us expand out to the Valley Green Energy communities. Each one of us personally has different contacts and we can start to really broaden the awareness and the involvement. That's our real goal, is to get as many people as we can manage to be coaches, so that we can accelerate, as Denise said, the electrification. Get people to understand what it means, what they're committing to, financially. Looking at selecting the technology, looking at selecting the installer. But Valley Green Energy communities are ready. And then LEA can advocate for this eventual coaching program. Local Energy Advocates was very instrumental and successful at lobbying for and achieving a climate action and project administration department with 3 people in it for Northampton. So I'm seeing this advocacy for a paid staff position as a coaching program coordinator being very similar to that campaign to get CAPA. Next slide.
Okay, before we get there, I just.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I had one other thing too.
Okay, go ahead. Yep.
I didn't want to give the impression that Denise and Eric and I have this all figured out. We do plan to have an invitation go out to people like Ben Weil, like Stephanie Ciccarella, like LEA, different members of the coalition, and really ask them, what do you think we need for an energy coaching program? And how could you use this website? So that's our kind of parallel path here, with us taking what's already been done by other communities, getting a hold of it, understanding it, and then reach out and sort of find out how to make it our own in this area. So it's really interesting to me to see Pamela Kelly here from Greenfield, because there's another neighbor that we can learn from or teach or share. So even without being part of the VGE, I think there's a lot of opportunity to develop this program on the basis of lots of feedback.
Yeah. Thanks, Tom. I just wanted to mention that we aren't clear yet on whether it makes more sense for the Mass Energize website for Northampton coaching program should also then expand. It's certainly doable for other communities to have their own town website, but still coordinate a program across them. We're not at the lowest funding level of Mass Energize. We're in the middle. But so maybe we decide to have one site for the whole region coaching program when we get there. But we have some time before that to figure that out. So I think that's it. But we did want to close with this little fun slide. And Lori Goldner was the inspiration for this, but this is as simple as you could imagine getting. We can help.
I still have the booth, waiting to use it again.
So
the one change we would make is certainly we wouldn't even charge 5 cents. So ours is going to be free. So I don't know how much money you made off that deal, but
I told them to keep it.
all right,
Thank
how do we want
you
to
so
take?
much. That's such a wonderful, detailed explanation of the program that you're planning. And I want to open it up for questions now. But I'd like to specify that this is not a time to get your questions about your individual house answered. This is a time to ask questions about the program and how you might get involved in the program itself. Okay. So, Pam.
Yes, I think it's an extremely exciting program. Thank you very much for doing all the work getting there. To me, it's almost tearful. And I would like to say this too, is that of course I'm extremely interested and I realize it's going to take some time, but I'm not likely to be a person doing outreach in Florence or Northampton. I may be a person that could help expand or foster um, programs in other towns in the region. And then I have one very practical question. Heat pumps. My house has heat pumps and I have solar collectors. I did a major upgrade, but the heat pumps cost a lot of money when they're all by themselves. But if they're with a solar collecting system, it gets your income, it makes it very income beneficial. And so that is, I have experience with that. I could share with somebody later, but you probably have your own experience and you probably already know this stuff already. But I'd like somebody's telephone because I also have information about not just residential, but also commercial building programs from Connecticut. That's all. That's enough, but I need a phone number or something from one of you all.
Pam, I think I actually have emailed you previously that somebody connected us, and at the bottom of that email should be my cell phone, but it's 413 320
Yeah.
2731.
Okay.
And I did put something in the chat to you. I don't know if you saw it or not for this meeting. Wondering if you've connected with Greening Greenfield.
Oh,
And yeah, and there's another organization, Franklin Regional Council of Governments, that has some DOER funding that I just found out about today. So yeah, just wanted to see if that was
I know all those.
great. I could certainly gain by talking to you and sharing your experience with that, as well as hearing from you. Thanks for offering that.
Great. I see Darcy's hand.
Yeah, I'm just interested in, I'm interested that there is energy coaching going on in Amherst, and in Pelham, and wondering if you've all communicated with each other prior to this, or whether there's some thought that you could collaborate and all work together. The LEA brought up the idea that we should have a program that serves the Valley Green Energy communities, which right now is Amherst, Northampton, and Pelham, but we hope that it will expand to other communities too in the future. So yeah, I mean, in my mind, I like the idea of having a coordinator that serves Valley Green Energy and a coaching program that serves Valley Green Energy. So in the meantime, I hope you can sort of collaborate and think in terms of sharing resources and sharing the dashboard. I know Amherst already has a dashboard. It isn't quite as interactive as the Mass Energize. So I don't think there'd be any harm in still doing, joining the communities together to do the Mass Energize.
Marcy, I got to correct you. Amherst's dashboard for the heat pump program is not up yet. We have a sustainability dashboard that documents what we're doing, but this will be a different. It's not up yet.
Oh, tell us about it, because I don't know what's going on.
Well, there are other questions. I can, but I don't want to jump the line here. So,
Well, I just wanted to say that I've reached out to Lori. We have a fledgling email group. I don't have Tony's email, But the idea in the next month and a half was to convene a meeting of all those interested or involved already in coaching in our area.
Oh, good.
See what we can, how we can work together. So that meeting hasn't been convened yet because we don't have the contacts in all the towns. I'm so pleased that Lori has begun coaching. I know like she's told me there are plans in Amherst for a heat pump program of sorts, but I don't know if they're ready to announce that yet. So yeah, we're working on it. And Tony, if we can get your contact info, that would be great.
Yeah.
May
So
I
let's hear
jump in?
from Tony, what's happening in Pelham, and then Laurie.
We're sort of, vaguely at a similar stage. Actually, we were hoping to start doing coaching the middle of January, in a similar sort of phased kind of approach. That, everything takes longer, people are busy, and I think we'll be ready by the beginning of February, but then I'm going to disappear for 3 weeks. So I guess maybe it'll be the end of February. So, but we've got three of us have done the Heat Smart Alliance training. And I think 2 of us have done the self-evaluation at the end of it. And I'm not sure about the third. But we meet, probably every 2 weeks or so, and are actively planning on starting doing some our first coaching stuff. And this is sort of an initiative from the Energy Committee. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Pelham Energy Committee, but it also includes people who are not on the Energy Committee, and we're happy to have other coaches. So anyway, we're sort of, maybe just a little ahead of where North LEA is, but anyway, Pelham's a pretty small place too. And we've thought about, branching out to other things. We've also thought about Mass Energize. I think we haven't totally decided that we're going to do that. And we're trying to figure out how to get, it's like for a town our size to get to, have a Mass Energize website is not super costly, but it's not just cheap. And so we're trying to see if we can find some funding for that. We haven't so far found any funding. I think it would be great. My final comment is I think it would be great if we could all get together. It sounds like everyone's sort of doing similar things in the 3 different communities. So I guess those are my comments right now.
Could I just ask one question? How much does that Mass Energy website cost? You said
the first year for Pelham anyway, it would cost $1,500.
And that's because Pelham is in the lowest population category that they price out for. And for Northampton, it would be $3,000 for the first year, and then $1,500 per year afterwards.
What about if you add Amherst into that mix? Then how much does it become?
Well, that's a good question, and I think we need to discuss that. We could ask whether that's appropriate and whether Amherst should have its own, or whether a regional site would work. But I would imagine it would double it.
Mm-hmm. And if it would, it sounds like the costs are roughly scaled by the size, which is to say, if each of the towns had their own one own site, it would be, similarly, per resident, roughly the same cost having one site or, multiple. I would say, one of our goals, not at that point knowing what was happening around here, certainly is to reach out to Pelham residents. I mean, I spend most of my life, or a whole bunch of it, with the Energy Committee stuff, trying to deal with things in town here. And so one becomes possessive of Pelham's experience, and maybe other towns feel the same way. But I really think finding ways to cooperate is a great idea. I will say the advantage of, if there could be websites in each town, then you get a very I guess this is what we're hoping is basically it's a place that people would identify. I can go to people from Pelham and get advice for this, or I can go to, people from Amherst and get advice. You might end up knowing, the heat pump coaches, because none of these towns are super huge. Maybe that wouldn't end up being an advantage whatsoever.
Just to speak about the cost, off the Mass Energize website, the cost for more than 30,000 is 3,000 for the first year, and I just lost the website. Oh, there. Excuse me. More than 30,000 is 5,000 for the setup and the first year's subscription, and 2,500 for the annual subscription, year 2 and beyond.
Okay, let's hear from Laurie and hear what's happening.
Yeah, I want to say a couple things up front first, though, that I don't think anything, I think having a regional heat pump coaching program would not in any way conflict with anything that any town is doing, and that would be a boon to all of them, right? I think the stuff that goes on at the town level is really quite different from what LEA does. There are different rules that people have to follow, different money that's available. It tends to be larger pots, but it tends to take a lot of work to get. So the Amherst heat pump program is being paid for. I don't even remember where the money came from, but it's been around for a couple of years now, and they've been trying to figure out how best to use it toward a heat pump program. They finally contracted with the CET to put the program together. So CET is running it, and it's a program specifically designed to funnel additional money on top of what Mass Save gives out to low-income families, to families that are in environmental justice communities, places that otherwise, wouldn't, to really focus on those communities, right? So there's only funding enough for 30 households. That's what they're aiming at. There will be, I have the slides here in front of me. It was, if you want to see it, you can look at last week's ECAC meeting, Amherst Climate Action Committee meeting. There was a presentation by Marina at CET, who some of you may or may know, I suppose, at any rate, who is talking about this program. And they're basically being paid to do the outreach, put together a website, do the outreach to get people involved. There'll be some public, they haven't announced it yet. It's coming hopefully in the next month, but there'll be some public information sessions. There'll be the website, and there'll be coaching and other things provided by CET. CET also can do a big part of it is that they'll do the manual J assessment, which is huge. So CET will actually come in and evaluate the heat load needs of each house, which is something that most of us who put in heat pumps never get a good manual J assessment. We do rule of thumb things that we hope work. And
Can you say what a manual J assessment is?
A manual J assessment, it literally refers to manual J of some professional society of air conditioning and ventilation experts, that it's how you determine the heat load needed to heat a house, how you determine the size of the system you're going to put in. And it's literally a manual. I have it sitting on my shelf. It's like a old-fashioned phone book about yay thick. And it's full of, if they do it right, it takes hours and hours. And I asked them about that, and they plan on spending 2 or 3 hours in each house, measuring the size of every room, measuring the size of the windows. If you ask your AC contractor to do it, they won't do that. They'll look at your floor plan, they'll use a few rules of thumb, and they'll come up with a number, and there'll be factors of 2 different depending on who you ask. So these guys are going to try to do a good manual J assessment, a good heat load assessment, because that's how you know how big a system you need to install. Without that, you just don't. You do, there are other ways to do it if you happen to heat only with fossil fuels, because then you can look at how much fossil fuel you burn, and with a little more information, you can figure it out. But if you don't, if you're using a combination like a lot of people are, or you have a wood stove or electric heat and gas heat, it's really hard to tell. So they're going to do that part. They're going to go in and help find a contractor, review quotes, do all the things that Heat Pump Coach does. And then they're going to verify that the work was done, and they provide the money, I think, directly to the contractor who puts in it's an incentive that goes right to the homeowner. Doesn't have to apply. It doesn't have to go through them. It goes to the contractor directly. So it comes off their cost, the homeowner's cost. And let's see the timeline.
Is this the turnkey?
What?
There's a mention of the turnkey, which sounds very much like this, a turnkey program that is in the Mass Save plan. I'm wondering if that's what this is, because it is similar to it. So I'd be interested to know where you're getting this information.
Well, I can show you the slides. They're in the CET presentation that they gave to ECAC last week.
Okay, thank you.
So they didn't call it a turnkey. If I'm not that familiar with the new Mass Save rules yet, I haven't had a chance to really look at them. But this has been put in place over the last couple of years. I think it was me who suggested they needed to do a manual J. So in the RFP. So I've been involved in helping to edit the RFP for this from day one, right? So that's sort of as a member of ECAC. I was asked for my input on that. So, and only recently did they announce that CET got the contract, and like I say, it should begin. They've already been collecting pilot customers. So there'll be 3 pilots starting in February. First virtual information session is in March. Second virtual information session is in September, and then the whole program has to wrap up by December 2026. If I remember right. So they've got a couple of years to spend the money and 30 houses to put heat pumps in. So that's the scope of the program. And then it ends, right? So there'll probably still be a website that maybe can point to a coaching program somewhere, right? I assume the website isn't going to just disappear, but what happens with it next, I think, I don't have a good feel for what happens after they pull out, after the money is gone and CET is no longer running it. That's, I think, where having a local program would be great. And I'd be very excited to be part of that. Having a joint local program.
Thank you. That's great. Denise.
Just thinking about sort of this economy of scale here, and wondering if, if we did start off this Mass Energize website with all 3 communities, since we all do seem to be in about the same place in terms of moving an energy coaching program forward, that might be the most economical thing to do, because adding Pelham and Amherst and Northampton, as opposed to having the quote that Tom just gave, as opposed to having 3 communities do it individually, or even, Northampton, then Amherst and Pelham later. That might actually be the most reasonable thing to do, even though it would be more to start with. The other question, and I don't know if we explored this earlier, was one of the benefits of having this Mass Energized site is it gives us all these other communities that we are able to interact with and see what they're doing, and we're all on a similar platform, so we can do comparisons. But I don't know if the Valley Green Energy website has a way for us to just do our intake survey. That seems maybe we've explored this before, but it just seems like that's a natural, right? We're all in this electricity buying club together. Why can we not electrify our houses together? It seems like it's kind of a natural relationship. So have we explored using that website?
I did ask at one point whether a coaching program might be able to be hosted there, but I don't think that was processed through everybody, or I'm not sure.
No, that question hasn't come to the Valley Green Energy Working Group yet.
Okay.
So that would be the place where the decision would be made.
I probably didn't ask
Be
the
in
right.
local energy advocates.
Say that again.
It could also be in local energy advocates, but I was just going to add that the Mass Energize has programs that aren't with municipalities. They are, they have some programs with nonprofits and energy committees and things like that. And it's possible that they would entertain our just being Valley Green Energy. and having a dashboard for the Valley Green Energy communities. And based on what, I'm not sure how they would determine the population, but the Valley Green Energy just got data in its last meeting about how many households are now signed up in each community, how many megawatts each community is using right now of the 3 communities. And there probably would be a way that they could calculate it as an entity as opposed to 3 separate communities. That might save us some money. I don't know. But yeah, I think that I like the idea of, using Valley Green Energy as a clearinghouse. We've seen it as like an umbrella over all the different programs in the communities to try to simplify things.
Mhm.
That'd be great. Eric.
Oh, thanks. I hadn't thought that the website could be used. So I'm sorry, we went ahead and started engaging with Mass Energize. But so Local Energy Advocates has a site, and Valley Green Energy has a separate site that is I'm not sure if that's enabled through, I'm not sure who hosts that. But are we now considering, instead of funding just a Northampton, should we discuss a regional site either using Mass Energize or LEA's site or Valley Grid Energy site? Or is there something we ought to decide before we go ahead with Mass Energize? And I don't know if we want to schedule another meeting to talk about that, but it seems like we might want to.
I think we should talk about it.
Okay.
I think why we would need to talk about it amongst ourselves here in Pelham. At one point, yeah. Anyway, we need to talk about it. I think one thing that should happen is was it you, Eric, who was thinking of kind of just gathering people together from some
Yes.
number of towns. I think I mean, I'm not sure that we're quite ready to make such a decision, or again, I don't think it was going to hurt if we all do it separately, and I don't honestly think it's going to cost towns that much different if we do it separately. It sounds like from what people said, or as a group. But in any case, I think we just need to go. There's 3 of us. We make decisions together, and I can't make decisions for anybody else. It may be a little premature right now. We had very brief contacts with Shutesbury, and just about what we were doing, but they were very brief. I mean, they were really contacts to talk sometime. But we also, realize that each of our communities also has unique aspects and various things like this, and it might very well just be able to be negotiated easier what the contents were. If we were talking about, again, maybe doing something with Shutesbury, it was, I don't know if they even want to. We never got that far. Things have happened. We haven't gotten back in touch with each other. But my point is, when we had a discussion about that, it was clear that some of our funding and our relationship to the town is really through the Pelham Energy Committee, and can we get involved in Pelham? We're in this very vague definition of, are we not part of the town, or are we part of the town? And if we are part of the town, it gets very complicated, because then you have to work out all the legalities, and if you're not part of the town, so we're mumbling along somewhere in the middle. And Pelham has so few staff to police anything that besides the police, that we're just going to make some decisions, and everyone's going to be happy we're doing something. So but anyway, my point is, it also, we realize it could be, different towns have somewhat different priorities in terms of where their activism would go, and it might be easier just to sort of, keep it, that website, however it were, just Pelham based. Not to say that there wouldn't be all sorts of cooperation. Maybe there could be individual, each town could do their part, but then there might be a larger overarching, unit, coordinating unit, and, considering ways that we can, multiply our effects by being, more than one town.
Thanks. Some of the comments I was going to make are already made. So I think we're getting to a point, at least on the idea of deciding what to fund, that we really do need another meeting, which was exactly what Eric and Denise and I had a concept of. But now the reason for meeting is a little bit different. It's questioning and feedback and thoughts on, is it a regional or is it an individual town website? Is it BGE? Is it LEA? So I think that I would suggest that topic be the primary agenda for this meeting that reaches out to what Eric has called interested parties. And I think we can come up with a list of interested parties and then use that network to move out a little further if somebody else can think of another person we haven't thought of. How does that sound?
Laurie.
Yeah, I think that's okay, but I just wanted to say, I think I don't think it's worthwhile having a discussion about whether or not the CCA should do this instead of Mass Energize unless we first have someone find out whether or not that's even a possibility. My understanding is that CCAs operate under all sorts of rules. There are things they can and can't do. And perhaps hosting a heat pump program is something they can't do. I don't know, but unless we know that. And then there's also the question of Mass Energize knows how to do this. The price seems actually quite reasonable. I've paid developers to do websites before that are much similar.
That's what we thought.
And their pricing seems really good. I wouldn't see any reason not to do that. So I would encourage you to have a discussion about the larger, whether this should be a single town or whether the 3 towns at least should pool together and do it as a joint effort.
I think that maybe Darcy and Andrea could answer that question, or they could maybe go off and get the answer to that question since they are on the BGE working group that coordinates with the host and also the 3 communities. Andrea and Darcy, does that sound like a path?
Yeah, Darcy just gave part of an answer in the chat that the Valley Green Energy has a small amount that is collected for programs, and they have not decided on how to spend that. Of course, there isn't anything in the bank yet, but going forward, that could be, that could go to maintaining a website that does, Mass Energize website does a lot more than just a heat pump program. So,
right.
Helen has had her hand up.
I guess my thought about the various levels of cooperation takes me to a concern about making something complicated in the beginning and having a lot of time spent on coordination and basically that coordination. And I think the idea that the Northampton had was to start small, start focused, sort of get some experience, stand up that program, and then see how it could be expanded. And I'm just a little leery of losing a lot of time trying to wrap everybody in at the beginning. So I'll just leave that as a thought to consider.
I'll just jump in on that and say that this does not have to mean that the heat pump energy coaching program is shared among the three. We're just talking about the Mass Energize website being shared at this point. So
Right, but the Mass Energize website, as I understand it, is fairly critical to collecting the data and helping people navigate what their options are. So I see that as pretty much related.
I see. So it needs to start at the same time. We're going to run out of time, so if people could be quick. Denise.
Yeah, I could I'll just yield. That's good. Never mind.
Eric.
So can I ask, so I think that was a good distinction, Darcy. It's also completely possible, it seems to me, it's for if there was a Valley Green Energy site, could host a link to each town's website if they decide to set one up, or at least a mail to the coordinator. But it seems like we should plan, should I go ahead and reach out to the folks here or those that I know are involved, and schedule a meeting in February to discuss regionalization issues and this and the idea of sharing web resources and whatnot? Or does local energy advocates want to take that on? I just don't want to leave here without some sort of idea of when we get to sort of discuss how we can collaborate.
No, I think that you initiating a meeting would be great. If your
And if,
working group is up for that.
okay, I'm going to
And you know,
assume
with no commitment to a decision that it's the right thing to go forward with. You know, Helen might be right that it's important for each community to do their own thing for a while.
right. So I'm going to assume that that those here, some of you would like to be involved. If you are not sure, well, I'm not sure who to email, but I'll try to figure it out. If you want to be part of that meeting, put your email in the chat.
And then we're going to conclude.
I think we've got a good plan going forward for Eric to get that meeting together. I just wanted to ask, is local energy advocates hesitant to fund the Mass Energize subscription at this point? Or do you want to wait for the results of that convened interested parties?
Well, the board would have to discuss it, but I think, you know, given that we've already decided to fund the Northampton one and that we're very interested in regional cooperation, I think the chances would be good.
Okay, I didn't realize that there was absolutely an affirmative commitment to fund the Northampton Mass Energize site. I thought that was one of the reasons we were presenting tonight for your entire group. Okay, that's great. That's good. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.
So now we've monopolized your entire meeting tonight.
Yes.
But I think it was well worth it. I hope you feel the same way. And even just taking away, we took some notes on what questions were asked tonight, and we got the recording. But I think we've got some real solid interest and some really interesting questions for us to pursue as part of this next month or so of development and getting the website going, getting the training going, and convening the interested parties. So we're ready to roll. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Could everyone's
everybody.
email who I don't know how that would work, but I would like a few people's emails too. I'm not sure. Could those be sent out?
What was your question
Emails of
about?
the participants here, or at least a few
Yeah.
critical people in each town?
They're in the chat right now. Some of us have put that in the chat. I don't know how to contact you, Tony, but I sure would like to chat with
Why
you.
don't we do this?
I put my email
Why don't we
in the
rely
chat.
on
You did.
Eric's convening invitation to include everybody that's here and
There you go.
beyond, and allow everybody that gets the email to forward it to somebody who's maybe interested that we don't know about. And then we'll build out this Google group that Eric has started to create. Eric, does that sound like a plan?
Yeah, I just I don't know if Pam Kelly from Greenfield or Felicia Mednick or Maureen want to be involved, but if you do, I will, please put your email in the chat.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure Adele will want to be involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have folks from East Hampton on that list, as well as there are a few other folks already on the list. So, thanks.
All right, I'm going to turn off the recording. Does that make sense?
Yeah.